Hi, aloha ho mai kako. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your patience as we're taking small breaks in between each of our panels. We are now at our fourth panel of the day, second to the last panel for this first day of the Hilo field study. I'm going to go ahead and ask my next three panelists to jump on, turn on their videos. Thanks, mahalo nui, guys. So the title of this panel is English and Other Languages of Immigrant Ancestors Through Hawaiian, Resisting the Injustice of Colonial Language Policies in Hawaii. So just a little bit of a quick history lesson. During the Hawaiian monarchy, many Native Hawaiians were bilingual, even multilingual in immigrant languages, or the languages that came to Hawaii when immigrants started to come to Hawaii. And that included English. In most schools in Hawaii today, Hawaiian is placed in the same category as a foreign language, in contrast to English, which is the other official language of Hawaii. So we've been talking about this in the previous panels, that English is, continues to be the dominant language here in Hawaii. And so that bit of history is interesting because over time, Hawaiian has come to be thought of as a foreign language, and even the way that it is perceived in our educational system. And so outside, one of the things that we talked about in the last panel, one of the haumana was talking about, making Hawaiian mandatory in high school. Because right now in the non-Hawaiian immersion, non-Hawaiian medium schools, Hawaiian language, you can take Hawaiian language, but it basically fulfills your foreign language requirement. And so, again, English being the dominant language that it is here in Hawaii, the effort to revitalize Hawaiian has also included the struggle to restore multilingualism to students in Hawaiian medium education as well, to just kind of reestablish this notion that English isn't the only language that exists, and that actually being multilingual is good. It's a good thing, and that we in Hawaii actually have a history of that, of having other languages being spoken and being able to speak many other languages. And so we have a great set of panelists with us that are going to help share some insight on some of the things that have been done in the Hawaiian language movement, some things that have been implemented at Nawahi o Kalani o Pu'u. And so joining us today, we're fortunate to have William Wilson. Most of us know him as Pila. Aloha, Pila.
Aloha.
Pila is a founding, well, first and foremost, Pila is a parent. He was a parent of graduates that came up through the Punana Leo, graduated from Nawahi o Kalani o Pu'u. In fact, his oldest was one of our first graduates at Nawahi. He is a founding Punana Leo board member and continues to sit on the board. He is a professor at Kahaka'ulu o Ke'aliko-Lani, the Hawaiian Language College. And Pila has worked literally for decades in language policy, locally, nationally, and internationally. So look forward to picking his brain and getting some insight from Pila. We also have Yumiko Ohara with us. Aloha, Yumiko.
Aloha.
Yumiko is an associate professor, if I've got that correct, of linguistics at Kahaka'ulu o Ke'aliko-Lani. And so the linguistics program at the University of Hawaii at Hilo, interestingly enough, falls under the Hawaiian Language College there, and Yumiko teaches in that. Yumiko is also multilingual herself. Japanese is her first language, but Yumiko is also fluent in, obviously, English. We've talked about that being the dominant language, but Yumiko is also a fluent Hawaiian language speaker, and she has been helpful in a program at Nawahi and helping to find kumu for a program that we'll speak a little bit more about. That's at Nawahi, where the keiki learn to speak Japanese through Hawaiian. So we'll touch on that in a little bit. And wrapping up our panel is Kawehi Hayes. Aloha, Kawehi.
Aloha nui kako.
He puka o Kahaka'ulu, yeah? Puka no.
Hi.
So Kavehi is a graduate of Kahakaula o Ke'elikolani with a couple of tiered degrees from the Hawaiian Language College. She is also a parent. She is a Nawahi parent, was a Punana parent, and now she is a kumu at Nawahi o Kalaniʻopuʻu. And we're going to tap into a unique skill set and experience that Kavehi had at Nawahi, teaching a classical language, Latin, that is, through Hawaiian. So we'll circle back to Kavehi in a little bit to kind of talk about that. But first, I mean, again, mahalo nui ya'oko e kolu no ke yalauna ana mai. Thank you to the three of you for joining us. And so Pila, I'm just gonna come to you right out the gates, kind of setting a context policy-wise and ask you if you can speak to example of language policies that, while on the surface may not directly target Hawaiian and make it illegal to use Hawaiian, but nonetheless, they effectively have that impact of creating barriers for the use of Hawaiian language, and whether those are kind of like English only or things that promote English to the detriment of Hawaiian or other examples of such. Could you give us some insight on that?
Okay, I'm going to try the best I can. So
Okay.
thank you for giving me a little hint, and I'm going to have to talk about this. So I try to think of a picture that might help people understand what's our situation. And I think of it, you know, they talk about fish or salmon swimming upriver and you're going against the current. So we're like in this big current, that big river that's English, and it's so super strong, and we're trying to get up to the top of the river there and maybe create another little river that will come down. So there'll be multiple rivers coming down from the mountain, but we'll be able to have a distinct Hawaiian river. But when it gets down to the bottom with this big English river and other rivers, they all kind of come together in a big delta. And so we have what you were saying, like Hawaiian is taught is like a foreign language. The delta is where the foreign languages are in the English River down there. And so we started down there at the delta and trying to swim and keep on moving our programs up, and then come back down on another little stream, our own little stream. It's not going to be as big as the English River. It's not going to be the Mississippi. It's going to be more like the Wailuku River here in Hilo. Lucky if we get that big. Okay, so we want to be like the Wailuku River, but we all want to come together at the bottom and share the benefit of knowing many other languages. So what are some of the... Okay, so that's helpful, but our problem is we're still going upstream in the big river, and the big river has no idea that we're there, or they know about it maybe in some kind of aloha way, you know, it's wonderful, Hawaii has Hawaiian, but they don't realize that the policies that are made affect us. So to just give a simple answer is like just yesterday we were talking, I was on the Nawahi board, we were talking about the changes, want to change some things in the Department of Education's requirements for schools. And the big issue is that there's a requirement for language arts, but it's listed as only as English language arts. And of course, Nawahi teaches language arts through Hawaiian. So we want the Department of Education of Hawaii, where Hawaiian and English have been official since 1978, to actually say that the state language arts requirement is in either of the two states' languages, and that we count English as a world language, the same way that Hawaiian is counted as a world language, or sort of like foreign language in the English medium schools. So that's just a matter of recognition, because Nawahi has been doing that already and has managed to also change some policies. Like there's something called the Seal of Biliteracy in the United States, where you can get a recognition for being able to speak two languages, but it's always, in every state, it's always English is the base for the language arts, and then it's some other language. But we were able to change, this is where Nawahi has been successful, was able to change that policy so that the students at Nawahi can take a test in English to show that they get the seal, while in every other state, you have to take it in a language other than English. So, but this is just a minor thing. There's many things that are much more punitive, such as state testing must be in English. That's the federal government mandate. We have just recently a thing of they want states to have kindergarten assessments, and they assume it's going to be in English. So that's been a big political thing going on. And then there's just the mindset of people, they don't understand the concept of multilingualism. So one last point, this morning at our morning gathering here at Hilo, our speaker, Hiapo Pereira, mentioned a famous joke that many people have probably heard of. Us. What do you call a person who knows 3 languages? Trilingual. Someone who knows 2 languages? Bilingual. Someone who knows only 1 language? American. And Hawaii is part of America, and it's just an assumption that the English language is it. There's even you can have a law like we have in Hawaii, but moving it forward is something that takes work. And then again, a second final thought is that Navihi, the idea of having these other languages and restoring multilingualism of Hawaii is to honor all those ancestors who have contributed to the Hawaiian community with genes and also just living together. Hawaii has a unique history of everyone working together, living together in a pretty peaceful way compared to other communities. And it's a matter of pride for us, and languages show. It's a great way to show that.
Yeah, mahalo nui, Pila, for those thoughts and for setting that context. And I think, one of the big takeaways of what you shared is, I think that there's a need for diligence, and because the question that I posed had to do with policy, there's a need to be diligent because these policies and or pieces of legislation or laws that end up getting enacted may not on the surface be banging down on Hawaiian language, but there needs to constantly be a carve out so that officials and leadership within the institutions understand that whatever is provided for, that it can be done in both, can and should be done in both English and Hawaiian. And for years, the onus for making sure that that happens is on the people in the movement, and on our parents, and for, folks like you, Pila, in leadership and who've been kind of the torchbearers of these advocacy efforts. Mahalo for doing that work and for sharing that. One of the things that you brought up, Pila, I'm going to take a little quick divergence if I can, because you referenced the seal of biliteracy, and then we're kind of just talking about trying to be multilingual in Hawaii, which is influenced a lot by what happens in America. One of the questions came up in our previous panel, and it had to do with bilingualism and why the program isn't a bilingual program. There was even an assumption, and I'm not sure where that assumption came from, that the program, and when I say program, I'm assuming the question was about Hawaiian immersion and or the Hawaiian medium educational pathway went bilingual in 2018. So I just want to roll that up in a big ball and ask you if you can talk about why this is not a bilingual program.
Okay, again,
why it is or isn't a bilingual program, sorry.
It's not a bilingual program. It's a Hawaiian language medium program by law. There was a time when there was confusion about that, and even immersion, they said children who, we started out as they were called bilingual because that was what the state had, something called bilingual. It was mostly immigrant children. So when the children went into school, it was called bilingual, and they provided no resources for anything Hawaiian but a test in English, which will show that the thinking was these children had to be changed into English dominant students. Then as the program grew, and it was called immersion, then they said if a child spoke Hawaiian, they couldn't come in because it was to learn Hawaiian rather than to go to school in Hawaiian. And so finally, a law was introduced in the legislature to say it's Hawaiian medium, it's for education through the Hawaiian language. The first priority to go into the school are children who speak Hawaiian so that they can retain and use Hawaiian as an official language of the state. However, in saying that it is a Hawaiian medium program, the same thing like an English medium program, let's say in Kansas, where they usually don't get to be very fluent in another language. The reality is that every child that has ever gone into these schools, Hawaiian medium or Hawaiian immersion school, comes out proficient in English. I think I just heard the end of the previous panel. They always are proficient in English because that's what I call the minority official language advantage, is that if you're small, it's easy to learn a big language that surrounds you because you have to use it when you go out there and talk to people. It's like the elephant and the mouse. The mouse knows all about the elephant. The Hawaiian speaker knows all English. The elephant has a hard time even noticing that the mouse is in there and not stepping on the mouse. And that's like the English-speaking world doesn't really realize that Hawaiian's around, and it's super hard to learn Hawaiian as a second language, while it's very easy to learn English in the context of Hawaii. I'm not saying about in China. In China, it's very hard to learn English. In Hawaii, it's super easy.
Point taken. Thank you, Pila, for that. And for the person who posed the question, and I'm not even sure if that audience member is still with us, to just reiterate, the Hawaiian Medium Education Program is not a bilingual program. And I think one of the reasons, just kind of gleaning from what you just said, one of the reasons for that is that the goal of the movement from the get-go was about revitalizing Hawaiian and ensuring that Hawaiian would be an actual living language that is used by families, by community members in all sectors of society. And because of the context and the situation that we're in here in Hawaii that Pila just referenced, where English is the elephant and we're the mouse, there isn't a concern that our children will not learn English, even though every single thing that's taught in this Hawaiian medium education program is taught through Hawaiian. All of our students can and do speak English, and they learn English. They learn English in this program as a course that's taught through Hawaiian. So mahalo, Pila, for just clarifying some of that and that question that came, addressing that question that came from an audience member. Yumiko, I'm going to jump over to you, and given your linguist background, just ask you, I know Pila, referenced the reason why, some of the reasons why multilingualism and bilingualism is so important. We've kind of talked about the need to break down some of the false assumptions about English being the only language, which these multilingual efforts that are happening in the program start to battle that. But there are also just advantages of being multilingual, the cognitive advantages, and I'll leave you to speak to that. So if you could speak to that a little bit, why it's so important, but if you could also speak to your experience in helping to find teachers to teach in the Japanese language program at Nawahi and what that's been like. So yeah, if you could share some insight on those two things with us, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so about the false assumption of only English being the only language that comes from, of course, the in most schools in Hawaii, currently Hawaiian language courses grouped together with other foreign languages like Japanese, Spanish, Chinese, and it's same thing here at Hilo. And then, of course, the language of the instruction in all these courses, as well as other subject, is in English. So, for instance, Spanish class, explanation of Spanish grammar and culture are done in English. So this organization itself, this structure itself indicates the different roles given to different languages. In fact, it shows the kind of hierarchy of languages, right? Without saying English is the most important language in Hawaii or the only language, the organization itself indicates the uneven distribution of power attributed to these different languages. So at Nawahi school, though, there are 3 languages currently taught through the medium of Hawaiian language. And those three languages are, of course, English, Japanese, and Uchinaguchi. Okay, so Uchinaguchi is one of the 6 indigenous languages of Okinawa. And the teachers are all students of Kahakaula Keili Kolani. And they're a native speaker of Japanese. And one of them is studying Uchinaguchi, his ancestral language, but he's learning it because education is done through Japanese in Japan, including Okinawa, right? So he had to, he didn't receive it, transmit it through his parents, although his grandparents are speakers. So in a meeting with the teachers last week, I asked them what they see as some of the effect of teaching Japanese and Uchinaguchi through a medium of Hawaiian. And it was really interesting to see that all of them said that teaching other languages, or maybe I should say that they are first graders, second grader, and third graders. Okay, and they said the teachers said that the teaching other languages, in this case Japanese and Uchinaguchi, make the student aware of the Hawaiian linguistic and cultural structure through comparison and contrasting. So without this contrast or comparing, something to compare, it's difficult to see, but the bringing in other culture, other language makes it even more clear. So that's all of them said that, and I thought that was very interesting. And so at least for the student at the Nawahi school, there are at least 2 effects, I think. Of course, the strengthening their linguistic knowledge of the Hawaiian language, right, by teaching other, through teaching of the other language, that their knowledge of Hawaiian language and knowledge as well as the skill of Hawaiian language is fortified. And another one, the second effect is of course, this connection with their ancestors, not just Hawaiian ancestors, but the other, like Japanese and Okinawa ancestors among them. So that's another positive effect. And I also see the benefit for the teachers who are students of Kahakaula. So they're students, and 2 undergraduate students, and one is in a PhD program who is teaching the Uchinaguchi part. But of course, they are receiving this hands-on experience of Hawaiian language and culture, right? And it's just incredibly beneficial. Let me give you one example. So one of the teacher was teaching like and dislike. So it's kind of, it's very common to teach like the pair, right? The pair like that, like to say, I like this food. This is the food I like. And then the teacher was like, this is the food that I don't like. So that was the lesson of the day. And the Hawaiian teacher at Nawahi, after the lesson, said, might not be such a good idea to point out the food that they don't like. And so they're learning. The teachers are also learning the Hawaiian culture, Hawaiian perspectives. So it's overall, it's not just great. Of course, it's great for the students at Nawahi, but it's really great for the teachers that as well. And then I really appreciate this opportunity for my students to be able to teach there. And then of course there are, the cognitive benefit, of course, as you mentioned, right? Besides cognitive benefit, of course, people always talk about like healing of the ancestral the intergenerational ancestral issues and all those things, and as well as the overall well-being, right? Overall well-being in the sense that there is less instances of like physical as well as mental pathology related to the strong program with ancestral language, right? So, but concerning the cognitive benefit, of course, that's the bilingualism and multilingualism have been, those people seem, shown to be more creative, of course, and then better at solving kind of complex problems, critical thinking skills, and also they have the enhanced concentration, stronger meta-linguistic awareness, of course, ability to multitask, and better at listening skill, all those thing, compared to monolingual peers, right? And also one of the studies shows that effect of aging on the brain is also positive among bilinguals and multilinguals. In one study, it shows that the onset of dementia is delayed by like 4 to 5 years or so among, comparing the bilinguals and monolinguals. So there's so many benefit, of course, so many, but these are some of the very clear benefit that have been shown by the research.
Mahalo nui, Yumiko, for sharing that, and I think the insight, what you shared about your students, what the kumu, I'm going to call the teachers at Nawahi in these multilingual programs are learning, and some of the benefits to them. So, you're talking about creativity, talking about critical thinking skills, and just, those couple of examples to me that you gave to me are direct manifestation of that, in these learning contexts, where you are put in a situation where you actually have to have that conversation about, okay, in Hawaiian, it's probably not a good thing to say that you don't like a certain type of food. Absolutely nothing wrong with it grammatically, and linguistically, but from a cultural lens, okay, maybe we don't want to go there. And without having that context, you wouldn't have the opportunity to learn that. Same thing, I think, with what you were saying about the kiki, about the children, they start to critically think a little bit more about Hawaiian because they're studying another language. So again, just, an actual product manifestation of some of those cognitive and brain benefits, if you will. So mahalo nui for sharing all of that, Yumiko. Kawehi, I'm going to jump over to you right now and ask you maybe if you can give a little context about the Papahana Lakina that was implemented at Nawahi, and as you reflect back on that and that time when you were teaching Latin to first graders in Hawaiian, how do you think that impacted how they see and appreciate multilingualism at such a young age? And do you have any little anecdotal examples of that?
Aloha nui kako. So first of all, English, well, I would say Pidgin. Creole English is my first language. Hawaiian is my second language. And so I remember Pila and Kawanoi coming up to the kumu and they told us we're going to teach Latin. And I thought, okay, I don't know Latin. Hiki no, but that's what we do at Nawahi. We're a laboratory school and we just jump into it and we learn as we go. Makahana ka ike. So and it was really an adventure, and it was an amazing adventure for myself as a kumu. And it's kind of funny, I'm speaking to you now from my first grade classroom where I taught my first Latin class, and I believe those students are now in Papa Evalu. They're in 8th grade now. And I came across the quote and I thought it was perfect. I believe it's from Flora Lewis. Learning another language is not only learning different words for the same things, but learning another way to think about things.
Okay.
And that's what was happening in the classroom. So we weren't giving them vocabulary words and definitions. We're acting it out. And it was amazing to me to see how they could explain what I was acting out and give me the correct Hawaiian terminology. For example, before we always start the class aloha e nā haumana. So we started with salvete e nā haumana. And they were able to say, I would ask, well, what does salvete mean? And they're like, aloha. Okay, mai ka'i. So, you know, and then we would, as it progressed, salvete or distripuli. So I would ask them, what is distripuli? And they're making connections. Well, that since salvete is Latin for aloha, then well, distripuli must be the haumana. So just being able to make those connections and build upon their language base, but it was through a Hawaiian language lens. And it was really mind-blowing for myself to see that process happen. And because it was a new language for them, they would ask me, Kumu, when are we gonna have papalakina again? Are you gonna have it every day? Our classes are too short. Are we gonna have it longer? Another thing that was really interesting, we don't teach English until Papa Elimaya, 5th grade. They don't formally learn English, but because a lot of them play sports with English speaking teammates, they speak English at home, you know, they only have one parent that can ʻŌlelo Hawaii, and maybe the other parent speaks to them in English. They were able to notice that, oh, this word in Latin is similar to a word that I know in English, even though we weren't formally teaching them English. So it was really mind-blowing, like I said, and I keep saying that because for me, being in that and actually I'm learning with them and experiencing it with them, for them to learn another language and to be able to, and I heard Yumiko say this, making the connections, making connections to their previous knowledge, you know, going back to what they already know and being able to explain all of these different concepts through Hawaiian, no English, but just through Hawaiian. So it was very interesting. And I just saw them progress as the year went by, and they really loved Papalakina. And so did I. It was fun for me too.
For sharing that. And similar, I had a similar reaction when I heard about what was going on. Like, okay, now we're teaching Latin at Navajo. Okay. And so Pila, I'm going to come back to you with the last question. And I know the justification for it, probably in the answer to this question, but just want you to share a little bit. Why did you pick Latin? Why did you think it was important to try to ingrain some kind of Latin learning at Navajo through Hawaiian at such an early age for these keiki?
Well, I want to go back to starting with Japanese, because Japanese is like the biggest ethnic group here in the Hilo area other than Hawaiian, and that has the most connections. And then we went into the kanji because of Japanese, which is the Chinese characters, and Chinese also has a huge contribution to the Hawaiian population. So Chinese, Japanese, those are the big ethnic groups. But then we started to think about, we got to be fair and cover others. And so another group that was very large in the history of Hawaii, mostly has integrated, married into the Hawaiian group, is the Portuguese. And Portuguese comes from Latin. And then we have Puerto Ricans, and then Spanish comes from Latin. And then we have Filipinos, and Filipino languages are remotely related to Hawaiian already, but they also have a lot of Spanish vocabulary terms. And so in order to honor as many ancestors, we call them heritage languages. We couldn't teach everything, so Latin seemed like a connection to Portuguese, Spanish, and also the Spanish component of Filipino languages. And then of course English has a lot of Latin words that Kavehi mentioned, so it seemed like a way to try to cover the bases on terms of ancestral and the neighbors, you know, like not just if it's not in your family, it's on your street, it's in your community. You want to honor everyone. That's how I think Hawaiian culture is very inclusive. So on that's the real base. But then the second thing is that is people think that Latin is smart. And so teaching Latin, although it's not that as hard as in some things, it's very simple compared to Hawaiian. It does have things that are intricate, and then the kids could figure it out just by hearing it being used. They could figure out singular and plural, and then we don't have in Hawaiian masculine and feminine, but they picked that up really fast. And then another additional advantage is that the Hawaiian alphabet is a Roman alphabet like Latin, but it only has, what is it, 13? Why can't I remember? 13 of those symbols, including the okina. And it has a macron, and Latin has a macron for long vowels. And Latin had the other consonants that are in English. And again, Amy, I'm just going to bring you up. You gave us the tune for the alphabet song because nobody knew the alphabet song. And so Amy happened to know. What was the song that it came from that you?
Dona nobis pacem.
Oh, Dona nobis pacem. And so that's give us peace. And so that was something good, to do peace instead of the Romans going conquering all of Europe or whatever. We had that give us peace. So it was a beautiful thing. I really missed that. We want to start it up again. And the teachers, like Kavehi, they all participated and they were teaching the students on their own. And we're all able, and me too, I don't know Latin. I took it in 9th grade in one class, and I don't remember a thing. I had to go start from the bottom. So it was a wonderful experience of also showing the kids that we too can learn, and we learn with them, and we're all in this together.
Mahalo, mahalo nui Pila, and I think the myriad reasons for introducing Latin and or Japanese, and other languages into the curriculum. I think one of the obvious things is it starts to hopefully seed that change and that perspective shift and the mindset shift that needs to take place to kind of move away from the monolingual America approach to this understanding that multilingualism is good. It should be the bar, and that should be what we want to pursue. And especially for our Kiki, we want them to have a very strong Hawaiian language foundation, but to understand and have an appreciation for languages in general. Pila, I have to ask, and if both of you, maybe Yumiko, want to take a swing at this question. This is a question that came in early on. I don't know, the first or second panel today. And the question is, how can or should, and in parentheses it says young, but it's basically how can or should linguists support your work, or what can linguists do to support this type of work? You linguists.
All right. Well, I have a degree in linguistics.
Yes, you do.
And I was going to work for the sugar plantation as a biologist, but I went into linguistics because I wanted to learn Hawaiian for my own self, but it turned out that I want to share with that. So I would say that linguists have a unique background where they can help people understand things and maybe get a perspective on humanity and the world and the complexity of our brains and the ability of all of us to grow. But it's sometimes hard to be helpful for language revitalization, because oftentimes linguists are put up on a
pedestal.
Ivory tower pedestal, and the universities tend to force you to do all kinds of articles and research rather than direct help in a community such as teaching Latin in a Hawaiian language 1st grade. Right. But try do something like that. You don't have to be the expert on the indigenous language. You can provide help in learning another language, or even explaining what's happening in a community to hire people up who may not have thought much about what is multilingualism.
Mahalo nui Pila. Yumiko, do you have any other thoughts to wrap that question up?
Sure. I was just wondering because that's the question I always ask myself to what can I do? What can I do to assist revitalization effort in Japan? Right. So one of the things I'm doing currently this week I have to finish this up but I'm trying to ask for the grant money to work on the data already corrected in Okinawa. But they don't have the people or money to digitize or transcribe. So, but I can, right? I can, as a linguist, I can, ask for a grant and then just use the money for that kind of this effort. So this is like I'm trying so different things, but this is the current thing that this week what I'm trying to do, and then I think hopefully I can get the money to do this. But yeah, that's one of the things.
Mahalo, Nimiko. Mahalo Ya'olua for fielding that question again. It came in earlier today and just wanted to take an opportunity to address that. And mahalo ho Ya'oko Ekolu Ya'oe Kekahi Kavehi. Thank you folks for taking the time and sharing some of this insight with us and approaches, unique and creative approaches, if you will, for bringing back an appreciation and an application of multilingualism in our programs, in our Indigenous language revitalization programs, using the examples that have been pursued here in Hawaii. Mahalo nui Ya'oko Ekolu.
Mahalo nui.
Mahalo.
Okay, and for our participants that are still with us, we are about to jump into our fifth and final panel of the day. We're going to take a couple of minutes, take a really quick break, and get our panelists for our final panel in and joining the webinar. And we'll be back to wrap the day up with a final panel. Aloha.